Number 393 in the ring, please. In ring 2, could be.
Thank you very much.
Remember, but this is Wales. It never rains in Wales.
This is home, this is Skirrid Farm, and I've been here for 37 years. My husband's been here for all his life, and we're the third generation of channelers to be here. The house here is at 1,000 feet on the slopes of the Skirrid Mountain. Top of the hill is about 1595, I think it is, and the hill gate is 1,300 odd feet. Today you won't see much of the view, but if you were here on a good day, you can see right the way over up into the Lintony and the Longtown valleys, and onto the Brynarrow, the Gare, all the tops of the mountains we can see from here. Good place to live in summer, not so good perhaps in winter.
Well, I was born here in this house 62 years ago. My grandfather bought it about 97 years ago, and I think my great-grandfather was a tenant family here before. So, hard life, but yes, we have long winters up here. Get the wind and exposure, get snow as well, but not as bad as it used to. We don't seem to get the snow winters now, but we get terrific winds.
On a winter, you know which the sheep and the cattle will always be by a stone wall if they have the choice. And the hedging the same.
You got the baby lambs. If you got a hedge, they got something to get behind in the wet and wind, and also the wildlife with the birds and things. And it's like keeps the natural landscape the same as it has been for generations. Isn't it? With the hedging, I suppose there's not a lot of difference. No, the walling to before because it's still all done by hand. Whereas with a lot of other work now, they've got machines to do it. But if they die, it'll be gone forever, and like the edges won't be laid, and the walls won't be kept up. But because it is time-consuming, it's a slow job. You don't do miles in a day, do you? But, I'm on the committee for the Lintony Valley District Show. They had the edging and walling match, and they hadn't got a site this year, so they a bit last minute. I said, right, good piece of edge, and they wanted a wall as well, so we had an old concrete 4-inch concrete wall up the side of the house. So I've been there since I was a child. So I said we'd knock that down and build a dry stone wall back in its place. You know, the public likes to come to see it, and just keeping the community alive, I suppose.
Ken Young, I'm a professional dry stone waller, and I'm here to judge the competition today with my colleague Llwyn Davis. We're looking for good foundations, good hearting, good depth of stone in the wall, and general strength in the wall. Dry stone walling is mostly in the stock-proofing walls in the countryside, in a farmer's field or on a boundary around the commons, between the common and the farmland. And in weather like this, you know, dry stone weather, you can do it in all weathers, as you can see. If you were using lime mortar, you couldn't do it in this weather. It would just be impossible, really.
My name's John Barber, and I live just above Haybluff, Hereford's Knob, just outside of Hay-on-Wye. And I've been coming to all the stone walling competitions since they've been running. It makes everyone competitive. It's a way of people coming to see your work, and it's a good spirit to see how people react under pressure, basically. I mean, anyone can build a wall and take 10 years to build it, but when you've got one section and you're under pressure and you've got to get it built, it does show off your skills on how a wall can be really built properly. Dry stone walling, and it was a means of closing in fields. If a field was stony, they pick the stones up. What do you do with them? We'll build the walls around the outsides. If a field's not stony, we'll plant a hedge. So it evolved around that really. So where you see lots of walls is usually where the fields itself are very stony. It stays better than a mortar wall really, because it flexes, there's movement. A mortar wall is a solid structure, where a dry stone wall can flex and move, so it should stay up longer than a mortar wall really. And the mortar wall starts cracking and wet starts getting in, and then the frost gets to it. Where this is all dry, as long as it's built with a good footing and battered correctly, it should stay up longer than the mortar wall really. And the fact that you're just using the materials which is on site and not having to bring in other materials. And it's full of nature, there's animals can live in it, plants grow in it. I mean, it's more environmentally friendly than a piece of wire nailed up against the trees really.
He's going over too quick, look, he's ribbing it. His line's not good at all today.
I'm a blacksmith and steel fabricator. Stone walling is just, I helped out a couple of years ago because there were shorter numbers. At my place at home we got a few stone walls to build, and I read a book the night before of how to dry stone wall, and I come every so often to make up the numbers. So no, I'm not a stone waller. Stone walling and the hedging and all the other rural activities is very, very important, because if it's gone, they're going to go forever, because it's not a trade a lot of people take on, so we've got to keep it up, yes. A lot of them were built centuries ago, they're starting to fall down. If they're not replaced, they're just going to deteriorate, the stock's going to come through, then you're going to have the barbed wire and the netting going back up, and these walls are just going to disappear and never be seen again. Same with the hedging. If the hedgings are growing up and not cut back and coppiced, you're just going to get tall hedging, so you're not going to see any views if you're travelling up the side of the roads, and stock are just going to wander through. So it is important to keep these hedges trimmed, laid down. It's good for wildlife. So same with the stone walls. You've got the walls, you've got the wildlife.
In my own farm, my father-in-law, until 1976, didn't have wire on the farm. Every animal in every field was retained by a laid hedge. You wouldn't have had wire, and this was the main tool for hedging. You have to thin out the hedge. You've got to take out all the dead stuff, and obviously you need to keep looking up in the air. The pleaching is you have to cut where you have to cut, if I show you on here, 2/3 of the way through at an angle of about that, usually with the saw, or it's safer with the saw because you're less likely to cut too far, and then with the axe open up the split so it splits down, so that whole timber will drop down, so you've still got live wood there. And then if we go back to here, the tail's been taken off, but you can see that's the live. This will grow because it's very secure, and it'll also re-sprout from there.
I stone wall, and I'm not very experienced, but if I don't like what I put up yesterday, it'll come back down and I'll have another go and put it back up the way I think it should look. It's like a lot of these boys, like they'll pick up a stone and they'll never put a stone back down. They'll always use the stone they've got in their hands. Whereas if I'm doing it, I've got to play around it a little bit and think about it a bit more. But it's quite therapeutic in a way as well. You're out in the countryside and you're putting out something that's going to be there, hopefully, in 50, 60 years' time, sort of thing.
If you want to come up the wall, I can show you better. So that's to go up the inside here. What we want to see is good long ones into the wall from either side, hearting, filled up, tidy. What Richard's got here is the ideal situation. You got them in from both sides, and then that one's locking onto this one's locking onto here. All the time they're locking into one another. And topping up fill in the centre, the hearting as we call it, all these voids. And again, they're getting them all in. And you see up here as well, the length in the wall and good strong wall. The base is half the width of the height, and the top, before you put the coping on, is half the width of the base. So you're getting a good profile and stability of the wall. If it's straight, it tends to wobble, where this way, it's solid. And when you get up to about knee high as well, then you try to get one stone all the way through the wall as an extra strength again. Like, can you turn that one in long ways so that it would come right across? That this would come all the way through the wall. And if you try and put one of those in every metre up the wall, it's extra strength again. You need to have good big stones in the bottom. And you always try and get the ugliest, all the rough big ones at the bottom. And then as you come up the wall, you get narrower and the stone's getting smaller. And then before you put the coping on, you get a nice fine line of flat ones to put your coping on. As you can see, you've got to work with it to make sure it's all level. If you're using a thick one, a thin one, then you tend to get a ripple. But if you grade your stone before you put it on, all the same size, you get nice flat lines like you've got here up the wall. Yeah.
You've got to look at the wall and just focusing on what the layer of stone you're building, and then walk out and find a stone to match. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle, but there's more than the exact right piece. You can find other pieces that will match as well, sort of thing. So yeah, it's quite an art to actually putting it all in order. It's usually the big pile of stone and it looks pretty rough, and you put it all together and then it looks tidy, and people say, well, you had a lot of nice good stone to build with, but it was rubbish when it was on the floor, but it looks better when it's in the wall.
It's not too cold. Well, as I'm not warring, I don't know today. I don't think it's that cold, is it, Richard? Is it moving? Yeah. Yes, when the sun comes out, it straightens it.
I started edge when I was 14. I learnt on a farm to start, but then I went piecework edging, and then I got caught up in edging matches, and then I won a few prizes of that, and I thought I was a good bloke. Shilling a yard I started edging.
How much?
Shilling a yard.
Shilling a yard.
There was no power saws about then, and then we got it all with axe then, see? Get a bit of competition, and one tried to beat the other, and you tried to do it as tidy as you could because everybody else was looking at you.
The people, well, you've got the old characters of the old farmers who were born and bred here, and they see you struggling, especially when we're stonewalling. They'll come over and just say, well, you don't want to be doing this, boy, you want to be doing that, and it's something, oh, that's a good idea. And it just helps you out, and they'll lean on a fence and just watch the world go by, and but they're always there to give you some guidance.
We've got a young boy on the end here today. He's 13 now, last in October, and yes, he's here with his dad today, so he'll be the next generation again to carry on.
This year I'm taking a back seat, so my son's going to have a go, so I'm just sort of monitoring him and keeping an eye on how he's working. I started pretty young by just playing, and he's been doing the same, just playing with stones at home. And this is the first competition he's entered, so yeah, I'm quite pleased to see him doing the job, really.
If we don't bring the young ones up to learn how to do that, we will have nobody left to learn the skills and carry it on.
If they want the country to stay as it is, and in the countryside, so because don't keep yourself, do it. Somebody got to do it.